All right, let's just get right into it. I mean, you'd have to be completely off the grid not to have heard the buzz, right? Ozempic, Wegovy. It feels like every single week there's a new headline, a new celebrity talking about them. These drugs have totally, completely taken over the conversation about weight loss.
And look, it makes sense why everyone's talking about them. The results people are seeing, they can be seriously dramatic. But here's the thing. The story that you're hearing in all those headlines, the one that's just about shedding pounds, well, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Because what's really happening, under the surface is so much bigger. We're talking about a massive scientific revolution that could completely change how we treat some of the most common chronic diseases on the planet. And to really get it, to understand what's going on, we have to look past the brand names and check out the engine that's driving this whole thing. And that engine, well, it's this powerful little hormone that our own bodies make. It's called GLP-1. And trust me, this is the key to everything.
So, what is GLP-1? Basically, every time you eat a meal, your intestines release it. You can think of it like your body's own little metabolic manager. It senses that food is coming in, and it immediately starts coordinating your body's response.
And it's got three main jobs it does, and they all work together perfectly. First, it pokes your pancreas and says, hey, release some insulin, which helps your cells soak up sugar from your blood. Second, it tells your liver to chill out and stop dumping more sugar into your system. And third, and this is a big one, it slows down how fast your stomach empties. That's a huge reason why you feel full and satisfied after you eat. It's this incredibly smart, coordinated system.
Okay, so here's the catch. Our body's natural GLP-1, it's amazing, but it works super fast and then it's gone. We're talking it gets cleared out of your system in just a couple of minutes. The massive breakthrough with drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy is that they are what we call GLP-1 agonists. Basically, they're mimics. They do the same job as our natural hormone, but they've been engineered to stick around. So instead of working for minutes, they work for a whole week. And that sustained, long-term action is what really kicks those feelings of fullness and metabolic control into high gear. And this is where we get to the rest of that iceberg. Because when scientists figured out how to keep that GLP-1 signal on for way longer, they started to realize it wasn't just about appetite and blood sugar. No, it was acting more like a Swiss Army knife for our entire metabolic system. First up, let's talk about the heart. I mean, we all know that losing weight is good for your heart. That's a given. But the clinical trials are showing that these drugs seem to do more than that. They appear to have a direct effect on lowering blood pressure, improving cholesterol, and even cooling down inflammation throughout the body, which, are all major drivers of heart disease. And the real-world numbers here are just, wow. There was a huge landmark study that found patients taking semaglutide had a 20% lower risk of having a major cardiovascular event. We're talking heart attacks, strokes, or even death from heart disease compared to people who were taking a placebo. I mean, a 20% reduction, that was an absolute game changer. Okay, so the benefits don't stop there. They also seem to help out the kidneys. Think about it. Your kidneys take a beating from high blood sugar and high blood pressure. So by getting those things under better control and reducing inflammation, these GLP-1 drugs actually help protect the tiny, delicate filters inside the kidneys. It can really slow down the progression of kidney disease, especially in diabetics. And then there's the liver. There's a ton of research showing that GLP-1 agonists are a really powerful weapon against what's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. They actually help reduce the amount of fat building up in the liver, they calm down inflammation, and they can even reduce scarring. And that is absolutely critical for preventing really serious long-term liver damage. It's pretty incredible. The list of potential uses just seems to keep on growing. There's some really promising, though still early, research looking at all kinds of things, from directly managing high blood pressure to potentially protecting the brain, and even lowering the risk for certain types of cancers linked to obesity. Now, the science here is still pretty new, but wow, the possibilities are just so exciting. Okay, but let's be real. A medication this powerful doesn't come without some fine print. It is so important that we have a really honest, balanced conversation about the risks and the realities of what it means to take these drugs. So the most common side effects are, well, not very pleasant. They're mostly gastrointestinal. Nausea is definitely the big one. In some of the trials, up to 44% of patients reported it, especially right at the beginning, when the dose is being slowly increased. Things like vomiting, diarrhea, and constipation are also on that list pretty frequently. Now, for most people, these side effects are at their worst when you first start the treatment.
Over time, as your body gets used to it, they tend to get better. But for some people, they can be pretty rough, even severe enough that they have to stop taking the medication altogether. All right, now for the most serious warning. These drugs have what the FDA calls a box warning, and that's their strongest possible caution. Here's why. In studies with rodents, the drugs were linked to a very specific type of thyroid tumor. Now, and this is important, that same link has not been proven in humans. Still, because of that risk, the drug is a hard no for anyone with a personal or family history of specific rare thyroid cancers.
And finally, let's talk about a really important reality check. These drugs are a treatment. They're not a one-and-done cure. There was a major study that found when people stopped taking the medication, they gained back, on average, about 2/3 of the weight they had lost, and they gained it back within a year. This really drives home the point that for weight management, this is a long-term, chronic treatment, not a quick fix.
But you know what? The story is already moving forward. The science behind these GLP-1 drugs is advancing at like lightning speed. And the next generation of these medications, they're already here, and they're taking this whole concept to an entirely new level. So if the first wave of drugs like semaglutide was all about hitting one powerful hormone target, the next wave is about hitting two. Take a drug like tirzepatide. It's what's called a dual agonist. It targets not only that GLP-1 receptor we've been talking about, but also another gut hormone receptor called GIP. The thinking is, why not activate two powerful systems at once to get an even stronger, more synergistic effect?
And the data from the clinical trials totally backs this up. When they put these drugs head-to-head in studies, the dual agonist approach with tirzepatide led to even bigger drops in blood sugar and significantly more weight loss compared to the GLP-1 agonist alone. I mean, we are literally watching this science evolve right in front of our eyes. So when you take a step back and look at the whole picture, you see what the real story is here. This was never just about a weight loss drug. This is about a fundamental paradigm shift. A whole new way of treating these incredibly complex and interconnected metabolic diseases. Everything from diabetes and obesity to heart, kidney, and liver disease, all with a single class of medications. Which, it leaves us with a pretty massive question. We're just at the very beginning of learning how to harness our body's own hormone systems. We started with one target, now we're hitting two at once. What happens when we can target 3 or 4? Could we be standing at the dawn of a new age in medicine, an age where we can finally get ahead of chronic disease for good? I guess only time will tell.